Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Kris. Come on. Come on. Let's get this taken care of. There we go. There we go. All right. Okay. I swear every time I stop recording over a day, something happens. Hold on. Okay. Let's see. All right. Had to move the lights back. Gets annoying. Okay. So this video was requested. This is Imruঃ. I'm sure that's like Qais. Qais. The Tragedy of Hope. That's another Mufti Abu Layth. I think I nailed it. 100%. The whole thing. Especially the Tragedy of Hope part. I'm sure when I look back on it now, that's the only part I'm sure I got right. So, before we get started, clicky, clacky, and then you can click on the thanks button, donate to the channel, request a video. Your name sponsors the video. This is a request. Just don't get the extra shout out. Okay, this is because of the length. I know you're probably not going to want to hear this. It's going to be a two-parter. 13 minutes, 15 seconds, if I remember to stop it there. We're going to start the video in 614, 613, 612, 611, 610. You know what? Start at 600. 600. Well, if I'm starting at 600, then I don't have to say 600. Okay.
Yeah, let me tell you guys a story. You know this poem? This is an incredibly profound verse from Imruʼ Qais. Let me tell you about Imruʼ Qais. Imruʼ Qais is from the celebrity Don Arabs from pre-Islamic times. So he's, several generations pre-Islam. You're talking probably about 100 years prior to Islam and then coming towards it. But he passes away maybe about 2 generations prior to Islam. So Imruʼ Qais, this legend, he's deemed one of the most eloquent of the ancient Arabs. And his name is Imruʼ Qais ibn Hujr al-Kindi. And he's from the tribe of Kinda, which were in the around the Najd region of Arabia, and some spread out a bit. And they were known from the descendants of the southern Arabs. So from the kind of Himyarite kingdoms. And Kinda were a kingdom in and of themselves. And Imruʼ Qais's forefathers, they were kings of this region, and they were and Kinda were an important tribe because their region covered some of the trade routes. So stability in their region ensured safety of passage for mercantile travelers. So it was really for the merchants. So it's incredibly important. And what happens is they have several tribes that pay jizya to them and homage. And jizya, by the way, was something, for a century or two before the Arabs was well known. It was something that the Arabs used to do. It was not something Islam introduced. And we can speak about that another day. And they used to pay jizya. And so some of these tribes, they rebel. There's this insurrection. And amongst them, Banu Asad. So they rebel against Hujr. And so whilst this is going on, Hujr, he has several sons. And during his time, when he's a king, and he's obviously got control, he's got this under lock, this whole region. Imruʼ Qais is just he's just an absolute chill boy. He's just like absolute a drifter. He's just a Casanova. He just spends his time writing poetry. He just drinks alcohol. He hangs out in the elite circles because he's a prince. he gets access to these elite circles, and he kind of chills out with them. He drinks wine. He's just with women. He's, in fact, his mughamarat, his adventures with women are well known, and he's like one of the most excessive. He really, I mean, any woman he can get a chance to sleep with, he's there. He's on it. You know, this guy is, and he's so eloquent as well, and he's this kind of warrior as well, because he comes from this past, but he's often just drunk and he's drifting, and his dad's so fed up with him. His dad can't be bothered with him. He considers him a waste, and this guy's just a waste of space. So he just travels, with a companion or two. He goes to different kind of kings, and they kind of, because he's charming, they entertain him, and he just spends his nights kind of like this. So what happens? And this is where you have his famous, mu'allaqa, where he says, قِفَا نَبْكِي مِنْ ذِكْرَى حَبِيبٍ وَمَنْزِلِ بِسِقْطِ اللَّوَى بَيْنَ الدَّخُولِ فَحُمَّلِ. Allah. That's his famous mu'allaqa, where he says, to his and this was a somebody, and he is like, in some ways, he is to Arabic poetry.
Did he say the translation of what he said? Because I didn't catch it. If anybody knows, could you tell me? If I missed it, then that's my fault.
What Mir Taqi Mir is almost to Urdu poetry. He invents a lot of these things. In fact, people argue that he promoted this whole wuquf al atlal, that you stand on the ruins, and the poet says, as I pass by the ruins of such and such, and he calls out to his two companions. But this, some have argued that this may have been, if not introduced, then promoted by Imruʼ al-Qais. And the fact that the person that he likens women to gazelles, and because of their eyes and their slender necks, and this is all him. He's the one who introduces this into Arabic poetry. So he's huge in Arabic. And in his poem where he says, stand by this, he says, كِفَا نَبْكِي بِذِكْرَى حَبِيبٍ وَمَنْزِلِ, let us cry over our beloved, and so on. It's an amazing poem of his, by the way, full of his his adventures. So he will say, in it, he says, ألا يا رب يوم لك منهن صالح ولا سيما يوما بدارة جلجل. Allah. He says, and how many days have you had that were awesome with women? Huh? And he says, especially the day of Darat Juljul. And he speaks about, he came to this place and there were these young women and they were bathing in this lake, and he kind of comes and then he kind of slaughters his camel for them to eat, and they all kind of can't get enough of him, and he has this amazing way with words, and he says, وَيَوْمَ دَخَلْتُ الْخِدْرَ خِدْرَ عُنَيْزَةٍ فَقَالَتْ لَكَ الْوَيْلَاتُ إِنَّكَ مُرْجِلِ. And he says, the day I climbed into that, the carriage on top of the camel where the woman would sit, he says, I climbed into Unayza's khidr, and she said to me, what on earth are you doing? you're gonna be the end of me. And he says, taqulu lana, what is it? But she kind of complains, and she says to him, what are you doing? Aqarta ba'iri Yamra al-Qais fanzili, you're gonna kill my camel, can't take the weight, get off. And he has these epic lines in this poem of his, in his mu'allaqa, and amongst them, which are used proverbially as well, where he says وَلَيْلٍ كَمَوْجِ الْبَحْرِ أَرْخَى سُدُولَهُ عَلَيَّ بِأَنْوَاءِ الْهُمُومِ لِيَبْتَلِي. Allah. He says, in the night, it's like a wave, that lowers its curtain over me to just try me with new trials and tribulations. But
I think trials and tribulations are just more women to this guy.
It's an amazing, but this was this person. So what happens anyway? Imruʼ al-Qais, he's living this life. He's doing it. He's doing it. And his father gets killed. So his father gets killed, and the news reaches him that his father said, I mean, according to some variations, that his father had said that Imruʼ Qais will avenge me. And some say, oh, he just took it upon himself. But he has this, he finds out, and he's kind of like gutted, because he says, because he never used to like his father. He says, ضيعني صغيرا وحملني دمه كبيرا. He says, when I was a child, he just ruined me. Like, he let me go to waste. And when I grew old, he just made me carry his blood, as in I had to avenge his death. And this is why he says, when he hears about the death, he thinks, you know what, it's time to get serious. But before he gets serious, he says, Al-yawm khamar wa ghadan amar. Allah. He says, tonight we'll have our wine, but tomorrow we shall dine. He says, tomorrow we'll see to the serious issues. And what happens is he kind of rallies around, gets this support from people.
Tonight we'll have our wine. Tomorrow we'll get serious, about the issues. Is that what he's referring to? Tonight we're going to get drunk, and tomorrow we're going to kill whoever killed his father, or avenge, or grow up? Like, I'm not quite sure I understood.
Says, I'm gonna, I need to avenge the death of my father from.
So, had I not paused it, 2 seconds later, he answers my question. Strike that. You don't have to answer the question. I'm going to guess it's probably to avenge his father. That's between us. I'm just guessing though. I'm pretty sure accurate. I'm accurate on that one. Yeah.
Banu Asad, and so what happens is he gets certain people. They kind of support him, and they agree and they come along with him. And he was a warrior, and according to certain narrations, he goes and he fights, and he does actually he kills this person of these people that were responsible for his father's death. But then he says that, you know what, we need to restore the kingdom of Kinda, and I need to be its king. So some people say, well, Imruʼ Qais, this, we were with you up until the point of avenging your father, but now, this is not really, this sounds more like a you problem. Go sort it out yourself. And so he goes around thinking, you know what, I need to get more backup. So he goes to different kind of king.
He's asking the people who he gets drunk with and goes out and hooks up with women to lay their life on the line all of a sudden. Hey, listen, we always get drunk. We bang women, but now I need you to pick up a sword and get ready to die standing next to me. Yeah, I could see why the person would be like, yeah, no, I'm going to not do that. I'm going to go ahead and pass on that one. Yeah. I was totally going to, but then I remembered I want to try to bake a sourdough bread. And that takes a lot of time. So I'm going to be busy for the next however long it takes you. It's going to take me the exact same amount of time. But I do appreciate you asking me.
And it's very interesting, actually. He goes to there's those of you that have heard of the famous Jahili Jewish Arab, Smou'al ibn Adiyah, who has this fort known as Ablaq. And he goes to him as well, and he kind of seeks some help. But then he leaves some of his, in fact, I think he had his own daughter. He leaves her there for security, and he leaves some weapons and stuff. And he's going on this journey trying to get more help, trying to rally. And somebody tells him, why don't you go to Caesar, Caesar? Because, we can put you in touch, and why don't you go to him? So at the time, Justinian the First is the Caesar. The famous Justinian who does all the legal reforms, and many of which are still European law is still kind of based on some of the Justinian kind of reforms. But so Justinian the First is the Caesar, and somebody puts him in touch, and so Imruʼ al-Qais is going off there. And he goes and he meets Caesar, and Caesar kind of likes him. He thinks, "Yaar, wow, what a guy. He was charming, eloquent, and he had a way with himself." And Caesar likes him. So Caesar says, "You know what, I'll help you." And he says, "Why don't you crash out here a couple of days?" So he crashes out. And whilst that's happening, as they say, adat se majboor. he he bumps into Caesar's daughter. I think it's Caesar's daughter or his sister, but I think it's his daughter. And aankhein do char ho jati hai. This one, and Imruʼ al-Qais, who's this Casanova that cannot let an opportunity go by. This one. Wrong number, right door, number next door. So this way, he says, "Yaar, karna to nahi chahiye. I shouldn't be doing this, but dil hai ke manta nahi." So what he does is he says, "Yaar, chalo, zara touch me." So as it happens, there's a little spark, and there's the naughty that happens between Imruʼ al-Qais and Caesar's daughter. And I think it may be, I recall it to be his daughter, so it may be his sister. So he has.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop it there. At the naughty time, could be daughter or sister. I'm just gonna go on a limb and say that probably ruins the potential agreement. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. But we won't know yet, will we? We'll know in part 2. So, by the way, I don't know the story, so I'm not talking a whole lot. So I apologize if you were expecting me to. But until next time, have a good day, have a good night.